Hey guys, this is the Betamax Man. Today we're working on a Sony SL HF900. This is the second one that I own. Or not the second, I mean third or fourth one I've owned. I've owned quite a few of these over the last year. So as you can see, it's playing the tape just fine. And as you can see, it's got a good picture. Now, it'll fast forward, it'll rewind, it'll play, there's no issue. Sometimes it will stop intermittently. And the reason why is because of this issue. Let's take a look at the Capstan. Do you see how much tape is being thrown out? The tape is being moved through the machine, but the take-up reel is not able to catch up. So the capstan is what controls the speed, and it's what sends the tape through the machine. And if that take-up reel is not working correctly, it will not take the tape back in. So the tape is not getting put back into the cassette. So that's either an issue with a capstan, could be an issue with the motor. And I'm wondering, is it a problem with the motor? Well, it could be. It could also be an issue with the capstan. Now this is working just fine, but there are times where it spits out too much tape and it stops. And I've went and done a complete service on this machine, and it is still doing this. So I'm thinking the only two possibilities that could be happening: we could have a motor that is failing. There goes my assistant repair kitty. She's my assistant. Anyway, so when we do like a rewind, or we do fast forward, we can hear that there's some inconsistencies in the motor. The motor doesn't quite sound right. Show you what I mean here. You hear that? Okay. That motor shouldn't be sounding like that. Now let's go in reverse. It sounds fine when it's in reverse, but going forward you can hear it. You hear it? So I'm thinking that I was thinking two possibilities. We could have a capstan failure, or we could have a motor failure. The Hall effect device. This motor basically controls the take-up and supply reels. Now, the motor may work fine going in one direction, but when it goes the other direction, it could be having some issues. And I believe that the take-up reel, either the switch has malfunctioned. There's a switch that detects the speed of the tape. It's basically, the machine will shut off if it detects that the take-up reel is not turning as fast as it should. So one or two things, you know, I could have an issue with the capstan, I could have an issue with the motor, or I can have an issue with the tape sensor. And I did do a full service on the bottom side and the top side. and I still have the same issue. So we'll hit play. Oops, we'll hit play. I'm not supposed to be spitting out tape like that. So the Capstan, I believe the Capstan is working. But what I am noticing is that the take-up reel is not turning like it should. It's almost like the take-up reel is turning a little bit, and then it's stopping, and then it's starting, and then it's stopping and starting. This is not an issue. You don't run across this issue that much. This is an issue that does happen with, this has happened with my NEC. I have an NEC Super Beta Hi-Fi, which I still have. And that one had this issue. But that one was just a case of a switch that needed to be cleaned, and then it was working fine. But this one is not the case. Also, there is another model. It's called the SL300, and the SL300 is a Super Beta. It's a mono, but it is Super Beta, and the SL300 has that same issue where the take-up reel is not keeping up. It's like that motor is basically starting and stopping, start, stop, and that's what's happening. And so it's basically, you know, and you may find that some days it'll play fine, and then you might have other days where it does not, you know, but you can clearly see that the pinch roller is moving. That means the Capstan is moving. The movie is playing at the proper speed, so there's not really anything wrong with that aspect. But so we gotta take I've already took the bottom panel off, and I took the top panel off, and we're gonna go ahead now. I'm gonna take apart the mechanism. Yeah, also make sure that you unplug your machine. Okay, so I think this is gonna give the best view of the machine here. Got the bottoms already taken off, as you can see. Okay, so make sure that when you're working on these machines, you put it on a surface where the framework is on the surface, because you can damage components if you don't have the top panel on like I do. I have the panel off, so if you have the panel on and you're, you know, like it's halfway off the edge, you know, it's no big deal. But if you're halfway off the edge with the top off, well, you can damage boards because you're putting pressure on parts that, you know, just make sure that you got a nice surface to work on where your framework has the surfaces underneath the framework. So I'm going to do here. So here's what I'm going to do now. And I'm going to take, I've already taken most of the screws out. I just needed to take this one screw out. And there's a ground wire here that has to be put into a certain place. It's got this ground wire has to be put back on. when you remove it. You gotta remember to put it back on, because you know, you can have some issues. Alright, let's get, I'm gonna have something to, I want this because this will hold it up. And now I can get the real table back out. So we'll pull this real table back out because I want to find out, and I want to see exactly what's going on, because I think that there's a failure with the motor. There's a switch that could also be having an issue too, but I don't think so. Basically, I gotta try to move some of this wire out of my way. And this is basically just right here. This is a little strap that has to go on there. It's just a little strap so that the wires can be tucked in out of the way. And I've took the plastic piece off. I don't like these little plastic things. I don't like these covers because the wires get wrapped around the thing, and I don't like to have to mess with them. So whenever I have them, I just take them out, because those plastic things are just basically a pain in the ass. Every time you need to work on something, it's a pain in the ass. It's hard when you've got wires everywhere, you know, but these machines, they were built well, but they also, back then, they had to use a lot of wires and a lot of circuit boards to do what the modern VCRs do now. I mean, look at the modern VCRs nowadays. You know, you've got situations where there's only one circuit board with components on it, and that's all you need. But back in the 80s, you had a lot of circuit boards and a lot of wiring to do the same thing that the last generation VHS machines, you know. And anybody who's worked on VCRs, especially late model VHS machines, you know, the latest ones, like from the 1990s, you know, one circuit board with components on it was all that was required. So let's get this thing lifted up. So let's lift this real table motor back out. I'm going to unplug this wire here, because now I can get back to the motor here. Okay. So now I can start working on this thing again, and basically, let me see if I can show you. But I'm working on the real table motors up here. Let me get you a better view. Turn this around here. And so basically this is where we have the issue. Now this particular switch, so one of these is the insert switch, the switch that detects the insertion of a tape, and the other switch detects if the tape can be recorded on or not. If the tab has been punched, the switch will go all the way to the up position, and it will detect, okay, this cassette cannot be recorded on. So that's what these two switches here are for. So basically, I'm looking at the motor. Let's just take this particular reel off here. I'm going to take both of them off here. If I can get them off. Here we go. It's hard to get them off one-handed. So basically, there's that right there is what detects the rotation of the reel. And if that is dirty, sometimes that can happen where what's happening is the tape is not being pulled back into the cassette quick enough, and so the tape is spooling into the out of the capstan. The capstan's moving the tape through, and the take-up reel's not turning like it should, and causes the machine to shut down. It just stops because it's to keep it from having several feet of tape being inside your machine. So, and the reason I'm taking just this off, because I think what happened is I might have gotten some oil on that little switch right there, because that is what I was just saying, that it detects the rotation of the reel. So let's just try a little contact cleaner on that, and we'll try that, and we'll put it back together, and then we'll see what happens. Put a little bit right there too, because there's oil on there, so just want to clean that up there. So, you know, and you don't have to worry, because, you know, contact cleaner does not hurt the components. So let's put the camera back over in here so you guys might be able to get a better view, maybe. I was trying to think how I can kind of show what I'm doing, but so we've cleaned that switch, so let's just put the reel back in. Now you gotta do it kind of two-handed, because you've got a little brake tension that has to be pulled out of the way for that to come down. Okay, so now I'm just gonna put this back in, and we'll see if that done the trick or not. Now, another thing that could happen, sometimes these little solenoid switches get stuck, and so if you put contact cleaner in them, just try to spray as much contact cleaner in there as you can using the straw, And when you clean the switch, then you want to move this back and forth like that. And I've already done that, so because I serviced this last night. Now, when you go to put this back in, so I've got a wire that I've got to hook back up. There's a wire that plugs into the motor here for the real table. So let me get this all back in, and then we'll flip it back over, and we'll see if by cleaning that switch we've resolved any of the issues. I have a feeling that it may not resolve the issue. I think we may have to replace the motor. So I think that's gonna be our next step. This machine is valued at about $300 or more. You know, with the fact that this is a working unit, and working 900s can go anywhere from $300 to $400. The 1000 models can range anywhere from $500 to $800. People are getting that price because if you want something bad enough, you will pay the ridiculous price. Let's get our tape here. We'll see what happens. Let's see if that switch has done anything. It's doing better. You can see it's doing a little bit better, but it's still doing it somewhat slightly. Not nearly as bad as it was. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead. We'll put a new motor in there. And then we'll go from there. And we'll see what happens. We'll see what we can. A new motor should fix this issue. However, it may not. You never know. So, it may be a Capstan, but I think it's a motor issue. Because you see how it's not as bad as it was. You see how it's still doing it, but it's doing it to the point where it's not as bad. But I think, you know what, I think that, you know, it's a possibility that putting a new motor in will fix this issue. So, let's see what it sounds like in forward. It sounds a little better, but it's still not working. Yeah, you see how, oh, it's doing it again. Yeah, starting to do it again. Yep, we're going to replace that motor. Sometimes it can be as simple as cleaning a switch. And sometimes it's not. So let's take it back apart. I didn't put all the screws in. I just put a couple of them in. Just 2 of them just to hold the, you know, part in place. So we're going to go ahead and change that motor out. And let me show you. We'll get the motor and I'll show you what I'm talking about and what we need to replace. This is out of a NEC, which the NEC is, as you can see, there is a little bit of a difference. There's actually quite a few different parts. And you'll notice, like with the NEC, the switch here detects the insertion of the tape. I'm not sure what this switch back here is for. That might be the record. No, it's not. So, there's a switch here that detects the insertion of the tape. That could also be the, and I'm not sure what this switch is, but NEC used a lot of Sony components, the NEC betas, that is. I'm talking about the NEC beta machines. Used a lot of Sony parts, and as you can see, the mechanism is very, very similar. It is not the same, but it is very similar. So we're just gonna go ahead and take off the take up and supply reels. We're gonna take those off because we want the motor. So let me show you the actual motor that's failed here. Okay, so we'll just set these aside. And you see, now here's the cut washer. And this is very, very similar to the Sony's. In fact, this is a Sony part. This is a Sony motor. And you can see right there, it's got the Sony logo. The logo is upside down. Here we go. But you can see the logo. So what we're after is this motor right here. Now here's the motor. This is the magnetic motor. So this is the actual motor, and then the coils are on the bottom. Let's see. I'm gonna put this down. I gotta have two hands here because I've gotta be able to lift up. There we go. So this is the circuit board to control the motor, and these are the coils. So it goes these coils and those coils and these coils. So it makes a rotation. I think it's like this, and this. So it goes boom, boom, boom. You know, it just makes a rotation. But so this is actually part of the motor, and it's a magnetic motor. But you know, this is the piece that we're after. Now this particular piece screws in. Okay. This is the same as the 900, the Sony 900. It's got the same exact motor. Now it does have the same solenoid switches, but you'll notice that the mechanism, the way it's set up on an NEC, is totally different from the Sony's. So let's get this, first I want to take this motor off. So I want to get I gotta get a small screwdriver. Because this requires a number 1. So let's just take all the screws out. Now once we do that, then we can get the motor out. Okay, so now we'll be able to just kind of lift the old motor off by pushing underneath it. And there she goes. And the new one is. Okay, so here's the old one. We're going to take the old one out. I'm still going to keep the motor because just in case if that other one wasn't working at all, I could at least put this one back in and at least have it functioning until I could get to another part. But I think that part I have, I think this new one I have is good, so we'll just take the new one. There's the old one over there. We'll put this new one in. Okay, guys. We have the new one into place. I want to show you the old one here. So this is the old one. So we're going to throw that away. Actually, I may not do that. I think I'll keep it. And I think what I'll do is we'll check to see if there's a capacitor failure. Sometimes that happens, because it's got some surface mounted capacitors here. So probably what we'll do, we'll do that. Let's check the capacitors on this, but let's get this machine back together first. Okay, guys, we got it all put back together. Let's see if we made any headway, or do we need to do some further investigation. I think we fixed it. Yep, we fixed it. As you can see, there's no more tape spewing out. We fixed it, guys. Yeah, I would say that's fixed, guys. So there's no more tape spewing out. And we can see that. So that's great. So I would say that we fixed that. So that is good. And let's do reverse search. Let's go ahead and hook it up to the monitor, and as you can see, it's fine. There's a little bit of a tracking because this is a very old tape. There we go. This tape is like extremely old, and it has trouble tracking. But we could clean the heads now. So we'll clean the heads, and we do need to do some lubrication because this cassette basket can use some lubrication. So the bottom side, we've serviced it, but this is working pretty good. So we'll just clean the heads now, and so we'll just so with that, servicing done to it, there we go. We basically fixed it. And maybe one of these days I'll do a video on how to replace the Capstan motor. So basically with the Capstan motor, there's a screw down here. There's a screw down over here. Okay, let's see if I can get a good shot of it. This screw down in there, okay? You can see it down in there. And the one that you need is right down in there. Here we go, right down in there. Yeah, right down in there. There's a screw. And then there's a spring screw over here. So you'd have to move this little gray wire. So you move the... And I'll show you what the Capstan motor looks like here. But simply just take a screwdriver and move that wire. And when you move that wire over, it'll expose the screw. So let's just move this over so you guys can see the screw. But there we go. I don't know if you guys can see it. Now you can see it. See that? So that screw is the ones that will hold the Capstan motor into place. And then the Capstan motor will drop out. So some common problems are the motor that we just replaced in this episode. So that motor can go bad. If that motor is not working correctly, it can do many things. It could, if that motor is bad, it could not play. It won't fast forward or rewind, or it can play, but it may do what was happening. It may just start, tape will start spilling out, and the take-up reel is not picking it up, which is what we had with this situation. Other situations where sometimes it's not the motor, sometimes it's the solenoid that engages just before you hit play, because if that solenoid on the bottom is not activating, your tape will not go into play. And you may have rewind or you may have fast forward, but if that solenoid isn't working, you're not going to be able to play the tape. Or if you do get it to play the tape, if that solenoid's not working correctly, you may be, it may play in a fast speed. So sometimes when you have machines that where they play but they're not playing properly, where the speed is really fast, that's definitely can be the issue with the solenoid down there. There's another solenoid here that engages. So when you hit the power, that solenoid engages. But when you, just before you hit play there, have you heard the solenoid there? The solenoid on the bottom kicks in, and then there's this solenoid here that kicks in. And if you've got a problem with either one of those solenoids, it's usually the solenoid on the bottom that will not allow you to play. It's where the real table motor is. That one will cause those issues. So if you've got, now sometimes when you might have a Betamax where it'll play just fine, but it'll play for only a few seconds and then stop. That could be the issue that we had with this one today, where the tape was not being pulled into the shell quick enough, and then it goes into automatic stop, so you don't have feet of tape spilling out. But it could also, be a situation where, let's see what I was gonna say. I think I just forgot what I was saying, but there's, your solenoid, your motor, the solenoid up here. They could basically cause a lot of issues. And if you're having situations where, okay, so let's load it again. Okay, so let's load it. You heard that click when it clicked like that? Okay, that solenoid down there on the bottom comes on, and then you can now hit play, and then this solenoid will come on after you've hit the play button. So those can be your issues with the 711B chassis. Now, once in a while you could have a issue where this is a common issue too with the Sony Betamaxes, where you'll plug them in, you'll hit the power, you'll see like the channel or the tape counter, you know, but you have no power light. So if you're powering it on and there's no power light, what's happening is the voltage regulator IC, which is back here, has failed. I was gonna send the VCR King the HF900, but I had a power surge and my voltage regulator failed, and I knew that because of not only because of the power surge, but because when I turned the power on and there was no power light and there's no engagement. See, this engages. This engages when there's power applied. So if you hit power, it won't do that. Like if it doesn't do that when you power, that solenoid doesn't come on when you hit power and you have no power light, then that's your voltage regulator. Now what I have also seen is where their machine is not getting a power light, but it is working. The VCR is working perfectly, and there's no power light, but you can hear the solenoid engage and it plays tapes. That is your bulb burned out. Sometimes these bulbs do go out, and when those bulbs go out, you won't have a light. So if you're powering it on and you hear that click and it's playing a tape perfectly, then you just have a light that has went out. But if you're hitting power and you have no power light and this solenoid is not engaging, this solenoid will engage. The tape will go in. It'll thread it. This solenoid will engage on the bottom. Okay, she's all put back together, and I shined her up with a little bit of Novus, and this baby is ready to go. This has been, I've cleaned the heads, everything is good on this thing. It's been fully serviced, you know, other than, you know, me needing to go into the cassette housing and, you know, maybe need to put some new grease, but after I put the tape in several times, has kind of worked the lubricant, you know, on the gears, and so now the tapes seem to be going in and out of a much smoother transition. So, but this baby is good to go. So that's the repair on the Sony HF900. I hope you liked the video. I'm sorry that this video was a little bit long, but it was a necessary video. And even though it was working, it was not fully working. And sometimes it would stop midway. And so by putting that new real table motor in, which controls the not only the supply and the take-up spools. So the supply and take-up reels, you know, are turning nice and smoothly. Everything is working 100%. So this machine will make a customer happy, because with this nice little jog shuttle dial and all your edit features, this is a, you know, not just a Super Beta Hi-Fi, but this is a high-end Super Beta Hi-Fi. It has all the features you would want for editing. You know, you have your mark. You can mark a certain part of the tape. You have your edit start. You have your index erase mark. You got auxiliary. I mean, you have all these, you know, different features. So, and looks like I got a little bit of wet Novus in there. I was cleaning it with some Novus, and so I got wet. But this particular, you know, this particular model is desirable. You know, it has, you know, frame by frame. It has perfect still. You can go frame by frame in both forward and reverse, and then go forward again if you wanted. You know, you just push that button, that comes down. So the last 900 I had, this button wasn't functioning like it should. It was sticking, but I couldn't really do much about that. But at least this one doesn't have that problem. But, and you can see the reflection, you know, shines, because I noticed it all up. I've already used the scratch remover to remove any scratches from the front display here, as well as the top. We've also kind of, you know, shined the top up, but this top is severely scratched, so, you know, it's not going to be perfect. But there you go, guys. So we did a full service, a full repair. Well, I did a service, but you guys didn't see me doing that. But I did do a service, and then today we just repaired it. Had I not done the service, I probably wouldn't have known about the issue we had to fix today. So, see you guys later. Bye-bye.